ReZero Starting in Another World Volume 5 with the elegant Crusch in the cover and naughty fairies in the background. We continue with Arc 3, Return to the Capital City, and Arc 3 is what made ReZero go from a series that I liked to one that I loved, and to me, Volume 5 is where the series started getting really interesting. If Volume 4 was Subaru going into the suffering out of his own volition, then Volume 5 is a suffering going to Subaru and not letting go. As I said in the previous video, the pain train keeps rolling and it won't stop. Choo choo! Arc 3 spans volumes 4 to 9, so we are still in the beginning of this wild journey. Now let's get into volume 5 and why in my opinion it's so good. As always, timestamps are in the description. Volume 5 is very interesting to me because it sets a tone shift in the series. Up until now, Subaru's resets were not very bloody. If anything, he usually dies by himself. The bloodiest reset is probably back in Volume 1, where Subaru, Emilia, Rom and Felt die at the hands of Elsa. The stakes were much lower in the other arcs. Even in Arc 2, when the children were kidnapped, when they were found they just had their mana drained. So yes, they were in danger, but to the reader, visually it's not that bad, they were just sleeping. Here, the stakes are much bigger. Volume 5's bad endings are just brutal. Not only are they very gory, there is no mercy for anyone. Everybody dies, even the children. And the author goes into a scary amount of detail at certain points, like when Subaru finds Petra's corpse for the first time, just to creep out the reader a tiny bit more. Honestly, the sheer barbarity of this volume's bad endings make the previous resets look like Subaru just beat the tutorial. This volume makes Subaru seem underpowered again. After the events of Arc 2, the reader may think that even if Subaru is physically weak, he will always have the upper hand because of Return by Death, something that Subaru himself thinks even if only subconsciously, and I quote, "He was certain that he could overcome these obstacles. Subaru Natsuki possessed that power." That confidence sure goes out the window because in this volume Subaru gets killed multiple times, everybody that he loves gets brutally murdered, and one of the loops leaves him so traumatized that he goes legitimately mad, unable to even speak. So, you know, ReZero, a family-friendly series. The situation seems so hopeless and overwhelming that even we as readers think, how is he saving the day this time? Can he even save everybody? The odds are so stacked against our protagonist that it's impossible not to be interested. After reading Volume 5, I'm just so curious that I just have to read the next one. This is a great turning point in the series. Now, onto our main man Subaru. After what happened at the end of Volume 4 with Emilia, our protagonist is very regretful. As the narrator puts it, he said a lot of unacceptable things and even Subaru himself wasn't quite sure how much of that he meant. This is the first time in the story where Subaru and Emilia are truly apart, which is a big emotional blow for both. Subaru is not redeemed in any way yet though. He's still very much holding on to his pride, like, for example, refusing to accept that the duel with Julius was meaningless. And when Crusch and fairies give him what is legitimate advice, even if it's not what he wants to hear, he feels very angry and bitter, like they're stepping on his pride somehow. He still doesn't want to admit that he's wrong. At one point in one of his monologues, he blames everyone else in the capital and says that the capital is the root of all evil and that he never should have left the mansion. Even worse than his pride is the dark side we see of Subaru when Emilia is reportedly in danger. Nothing will work unless I'm with her, now she'll understand that. And he never noticed the faint twisting of his lips. This is messed up. His love for Emilia is genuine as we've seen, yet he can't help but smile at her being in danger because deep down he sees this as an opportunity. He has developed this toxic relationship with her where he needs her to be in danger so that he can feel valuable and show his worth to her, others, and even himself. Regardless of all these dark thoughts, he does raise some good points, like how Emilia kept him in the dark for a lot of the royal selection stuff, and how she pushed him away despite how much he likes her. He doesn't understand that Emilia was, in a clumsy way, doing what she thought was best for him. If she kept him in the dark, he wouldn't act recklessly, as he always does. Once again, we have to keep in mind that neither Subaru nor Emilia are the paragons of maturity. Subaru is, after all, still a teenager, and Emilia is complicated. So it's very realistic for them to be angry at each other and for them to have fights. The problem is that Subaru's humiliation at the hands of Julius and his subsequent fight with Emilia, coupled with him being an average dude in a fantasy world whose only power is returned by death, has led him to develop some very sinister feelings. Now, even if our protagonist is not redeemed whatsoever in this volume, if anything he's shown in an almost evil light, this time it's very easy to empathize with him because of all the horrible things that he goes through. The author even goes in a lot of detail describing the horrific things that happen to him in this volume, almost like he's having fun writing this. This time it's so bad that in one of the loops we see our protagonist mentally break for the first time. We have seen him quit before in volume 2, but this is the first time he gets turned into an actual madman, incapable of even speaking normally. Eventually, Petelgeuse says that he's only pretending to be crazy, which is sort of a half-truth. Later, Subaru does indeed snap out of his madness out of pure hatred for Petelgeuse, but his madness was always different from his to begin with. He was mad as a coping mechanism. He wanted to run away from the dark future that he saw. He was trying to run away from his own thoughts and his own mind. This volume manages to somehow end up even worse than the previous one. Whereas before we had a lonely protagonist, this time we have a vengeful dark protagonist and the very ominous last phrase. Subaru Natsuki's heart was tempted into that deep, deep dark abyss. Just look at this final image to end the book. It's not pretty. Overall, the character arc of Subaru in Arc 3 is very interesting to read. He goes from naive and prideful to traumatized to angry and bitter. We're still far from maturity, but it's a very fascinating journey to read. I've talked about tone shifts, and it's from this volume on that the community really started liking Rem, and with good reason. She's amazing in this volume. She truly loves and cares for Subaru. We see this not only through her actions, but also through her language. The way she speaks is very sweet towards Subaru, saying very romantic things like, "Just spending time with you makes me very happy, Subaru." There are many other examples. She says to Subaru that he's wonderful, she says that she's his, basically a very big contrast from the first time they interacted back in volume 2. Her presence is even more meaningful now that Emily is gone. She's his only emotional support throughout these traumatic events, and without Rem, I don't think Subaru would have made it through Arc 3. The fact that Subaru goes mad in one of the loops is also a great plot device for us to get a good chunk of the book out of Rem's point of view, which is very interesting. We get to know a lot of her inner thoughts and insecurities, mainly how she gets very jealous when Subaru interacts with the other girls, mainly Emilia. We also get to know her conflicting feelings regarding Emilia. Rem has always shown to be a very emotional character, but in volume 5 we truly understand how far she's willing to go. The way she expresses love is unbreakable devotion. The physical lengths she goes to save Subaru are simply incredible. The fight with the witch cult, where she's sustaining more and more damage and she's still doing everything she can in her power to protect Subaru, is just great. And the final scene where she's at death's doorstep and still manages to get the willpower to crawl herself towards Subaru, cut his chains and tell him to live is very emotional. To me, the most powerful in the whole book. Her being so caring is also why it hits so hard when she's killed, particularly in the scene where Petelgeuse kills Rem in front of Subaru. To me, she's by far the biggest highlight of volume 5. Now, let's talk a bit about Crusch. Out of the 5 royal candidates, in terms of characters, to me she's my second favorite, only behind Emilia. As far as royal candidates go, she's by far my favorite, as I said last video. Sorry Emilia, I really like you, but I wouldn't vote for you. We get to see a bit more of Crusch's character in this volume. From her speech and the way she presents herself, she may seem very uptight, but that is not the case at all. Subaru says, "I feel like getting my butt kicked while a pretty girl's watching is kinda hard to swallow as a guy." To which she replies, "There is no need for concern. It is hardly the first time I have seen you getting hurt." She's no Rum or Beatrice, but I'll take it. It's fascinating to see her in an informal setting, such as the date with Subaru. We also see that she's very humble, refusing to take credit for killing the demon beasts when she merely drove them away. They talk about marriage, which is also very revealing for her character. It's not that she doesn't have emotions, but she places duty above all else. We also get an hilarious conversation when Fairies later arrive saying things like men are wolves, which is just funny. Despite going against her advice, she's very supportive of Subaru going his own way. She's all for individuals doing what they think is best and taking responsibility for their actions. From her character design, the cliché would be that she's very uptight and arrogant, but she's none of those things. Crusch is a great character and I hope we see more of her. Another character I want to talk about, strangely enough, is my man Cadmon. Small note, he was initially named Kadomon back in Volume 1, but this was later changed to just Cadmon in Volumes 4 and 5. I don't really mind this as he's not really an important character, but for an official translation just pick one name and run with it, don't be changing halfway through. Keep in mind, recent prints of Volume 1 may have his name updated. This was just one of the inconsistencies I found in the Yen Press releases. Now, I like Cadmon a lot, not because he sounds like a Digimon, but because he has this rough appearance, but he's very helpful and nice towards Subaru. In this volume, he's used as a bit of a plot device to give some exposition on the current political situation in Lugunica as well as the surrounding geography. Nevertheless, he still has his cool moments, like at the end of the book when he only pushes Subaru away from the store after he has seen that he has calmed down. It's through these subtle interactions that we see that Cadmon really does care in his own way. He's a bit of a meme character as the author seems to use him a lot for reset points, but even if he has very minimal impact on the story, I still appreciate him and would like to see more of him in future volumes, so shout out to my man Cadmon, he's a real dude. As we know, a great hero story needs a great challenge, and usually that comes in the form of a great villain, and man, Petelgeuse is a great villain, he's just pure evil. The villains in Arc 2 were technically the demon beasts, which was a bit disappointing after Elsa, who I also like a lot as a villain and is so entertainingly evil. Arc 3 does not make the same mistake. Petelgeuse manages to somehow be even more evil than Elsa, and not only is he completely evil, he's also completely insane. With Elsa, you can see there's a method to her madness. She just does what she's paid to do. And for example, I like reading light novels, she likes cutting people open. She's just a girl with peculiar tastes. What am I even saying? Anyways, with Elsa, you're always wondering when she's going to snap. Petelgeuse is more terrifying because he has already snapped. He's completely crazy. Being completely honest, I think Petelgeuse is one of the characters that benefits the most from animation. Seeing his agitated figure, his weird body language, and his voice acting makes the character so much better. But even in the book, he is very terrifying. From his completely incoherent ramblings to the weird stuff he does like licking Subaru's eyeball, to then killing Rem and playing with her corpse in front of Subaru, this man is completely despicable. At the end of the book, even if we understand that Subaru's frame of mind is wrong, we know that his intention is right. Petelgeuse is completely irredeemable and somebody has to deal with him. I really like Volume 5, especially after Volume 4. I appreciate that in the middle of such misery we have a lot of comedic moments sprinkled throughout the volume, like the healing scene with Fairies and Rem, the scene where Rem sells the whole Apple store and is just a much better merchant in Cadmon, the scene where Otto is completely drunk but as soon as he senses money he just goes sober, the fact that Rem says that she has made outfits for different occasions that are completely the same in terms of visual appearance, just funny moments here and there. Even the moments with Petelgeuse can also be very funny if you have a very dark and twisted sense of humor. I also like the world building in showing us the populace's perspective out of this whole royal election stuff, as well as showing us just how ingrained the discrimination against Emilia is. Overall, this volume is brutal and I love it. Subaru's character arc is also very entertaining to read. Now, for MVP of Volume 5, if you're very sadistic and love watching Subaru suffer for some reason, then maybe you could vote for Petelgeuse or even Puck, I guess, but that's a very big stretch. To me, it's not even arguable. The MVP of Volume 5 is Rem. She is absolutely amazing, and if there is such a thing as Best Girl, then in Volume 5, Rem is it. This has been my review. If you like this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and maybe leave your MVP in the comments, and I will see you on the next video for volume 6. Bye bye.